Credentials authenticated. Authorization granted. Please stand by. Intelligence system analytic computer reactivated. All Isaac subsystems operational.
That was the last step to getting Isaac fully restored locally. But we have a ways to go before we can celebrate.
Hello and welcome to the final edition of State of the Mod. As you can see, Project Isaac is finished. It's been a really difficult last couple of weeks trying to get this done, but it's finally together and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Hopefully you like it too, and there'll be a link down below for you to vote for Project Isaac in the Thermaltake UK 2020 Case Mod Challenge. There's barely anything on or in the case that I haven't modded or made from scratch in some way. So let's go through a few of those bits now. Now the rear of the case is the first thing that I modded, and as promised it looks absolutely battered. There's a huge gash across the back of the main panel. It's got a hole in it, there's rust everywhere. It really looks like it's been through utter hell. I've also replaced the rear ventilation panels with aluminium mesh and then applied rust paint to them to age them up a bit. I've also replaced the central plastic mesh that allows air to get into the fans with the aluminium mesh and aged that as well. Then inside I've added some more weathering effects with rust paint, another paint that makes it look grubby, and even a bit of JB Weld, and rubbed that in just to make it look really grimy. The front of the case is a completely different story, however, where I've stripped the paint completely and then put steel panels across the centre section to form a new motherboard tray and a surround for the vertical radiator. This gives it a much cleaner and clinical look. To complement that, I made a new motherboard armour, CPU block cover and GPU block cover from 2mm aluminium. On the GPU block I also cut out the Division 2 logo. All of these pieces have been done entirely by hand. Also stripped the dark anodising off the aluminium motherboard heat sinks using caustic soda. For the power cables in the main chamber I've done individually sleeved cables in the Division colours and used aviation connectors as a kind of cut off in between the main and rear sections. For water cooling fittings I've used Thermaltake C Pro fittings in chrome for the normal straight fittings, and then the angled fittings are also from Thermaltake, but they were originally black, but I used an abrasive wheel on a Dremel to take that paint off and give them a nice brushed brass finish. I made covers for both the vertical radiator and the radiator that I've installed under the case using stainless steel louvers. They're then attached with aluminium channel and then using stainless steel screws and brass washers just for a nice little touch. Now the next mod is probably one of my favourite bits, and it's a test tube holder, and it's got 4 test tube holding samples that you'd find in the Division 2 game. There's a sample of the green poison virus, Emmeline Shaw's blood, a vial of DC62 which is actually turmeric, so it's powder like in the game, and then a vial of the antiviral. Now the rear of the chamber has a completely different flavour to the front, where it's a really dirty, dingy basement boiler room kind of feel. So everything's been caked in dirt and rust, from the power cables to the power supply, the pump mount, the hard drive mount, everything is filthy. Now the cables may look a bit of a mess, but that's kind of on purpose to fit in with that theme, and it's actually quite difficult to get the cables to train in the same direction and follow that path without any sort of cable combs or support, especially having to solder them into the other half of the aviation connector. Then another of my favourite little touches is I've installed 6 LED strips throughout the case, 4 in the main chamber which are brilliant white, and then 2 in the rear chamber which are warm white. Now sometimes I might want different light levels, so I've installed a PCI bracket fan controller in the roof of the case and hooked all the LED strips up to that, so you can control how bright they are. Then we have the beautiful glass etchings that I've done on all 3 of the tempered glass panels. On the front, the SHD emblem with the Phoenix, Isaac across the top, and then Intelligent System Analytic Computer across the bottom of the main window. And then lastly we have the cage. Yep, I made a cage. You've got to protect those beautiful glass panels somehow. Now I'm sure I'm forgetting many mods, but there are so many that there just isn't time to go through them all. So please go and check out the project logs on the Thermaltake forums, bittech.net, oc3d.net and builds.gg. I'll post links for them below too. And lastly, I just want to give a huge thank you to all the competition sponsors: Thermaltake UK, Scan Computers UK, AMD, Asus and of course Seagate. I'd also like to say thanks to Adam, the Thermaltake marketing manager, who's organised this and been really patient and really good with us all. And a special thank you to my fiancée Lauren, who's put up with me completely trashing the back room and being ignored for several months. So massive thank you to everyone. Please follow the link below and vote for myself, Andy Makin and Project Isaac, and I'll hopefully see you with a new project soon.